Translating words and expressions. One key to solving algebra problems is translating words into mathematical expressions. The two steps to doing this are, first, taking English words and converting them to mathematical words, and then two, taking the mathematical words and converting them into mathematical symbols. So we go from our everyday English to the mathematical words to the symbols. And then we can solve that symbolic expression or the symbolic equation. So we're going to practice the second of these skills first. We're going to first take some mathematical words and convert them into symbols, and then we'll go back to the first, and then we'll combine the two. So first, it's good to take our basic operations and see the words in everyday English that would indicate that operation. So think about what words would indicate addition. So you should come up with a list that includes the sum, the total, add, plus, increased by, more than, altogether. All of those words indicate addition. What about subtraction? Think of all the words you can think of and make a list of what would indicate subtraction in an expression. So you should have words like minus, difference, take away, less than, subtract, decrease by, less, fewer than, subtracted from. All of these words on this list indicate the operation of subtraction. What about multiplication? Think of those words and make a list. So you should have words like, for example, product, times, of, twice, double, multiplied by. All of these words indicate multiplication in the expression. And what about division? List words that indicate division. We're kind of going through our four main operations. So you should have words on your list like divided by, the quotient of, half, any type of fraction, divisible by, or divisibility. So all of those words would indicate the operation of division. Now we have to be careful with some words, especially less and less than. We have to be aware that there is a difference. Now, for example, we have 7 less 3 and 3 less than 7. These are equivalent expressions. So what is the difference in the wording? Right? So first we had 7 less 3. So that we took 7 and then the minus sign and then 3. But then we have 3 less than 7. So that we didn't take the 3 first. The 3 actually came after the 7. And then we use the subtraction and we put the 7 first. When you see less than, you take the second number minus the first number. So as a general rule of thumb, if you see the words than or from, it means you have to reverse the order of the two numbers or variables when you're writing the expression. So here are some examples. Here we have 7 less than C. That means C minus 7. Or 4 more than Z means Z plus 4. And X less than 3 means 3 minus X. Again, you had the than in all three cases, so you had the second variable and number coming first. You had to reverse the order. So just be on the lookout. I think that's the trickiest one when you're translating from words to symbols. Another thing to be mindful of is with multiplication. There's actually many different ways to represent multiplication. For example, when you hear the expression 5 times n, what would you write? You have a lot of different possibilities. You could write 5 and n inside parentheses. You could write just the n in parentheses. You can write with the multiplication dot in between. Or you can just have the number and the variable next to each other, 5n. The preferred representation is just the number and the variable next to each other, 5n. So when a variable is being multiplied by a number, the number is going to look like the coefficient, and it's always written in the front of the variable. Now, there there's lots of different ways that are acceptable, but two that we don't want to accept is if you use the multiplication sign, the x, that almost looks like the variable x. So it almost looks like 5 times x times n instead of just 5 times n. So you want to use a different multiplication sign. That's often if you do use the multiplication sign, we use the dot. We don't want to use the x because, again, that looks like a variable. And now that we're working with variables, we don't want to be confused. Another important thing to note is that the number is always written in front of the variable. You don't want to have n5. That's just not proper. You always want to have 5n when you're writing your multiplication. And then again, with division, there's not as many options or as many confusion, but you should note that if you're trying to write down the expression b divided by 12, you can use the division symbol, you can use the slash symbol, or you can use a fraction bar. That's all going to be acceptable for b divided by 12. So division, you kind of have those 3 different choices. So now let's put it to the test. So we have some different words at the bottom of our screen, and we want to sort the words by the operation they're representing. So take a minute and see if you would know which word goes in which column. So you should have, in the first column, you have a plus sign meaning addition. So that's words like sum, total, more. The second column is subtraction. That's words like less than and difference. The third column is for division. It has the division symbol, so that's like a ratio, a quotient, per, or any of our fractions. And then the fourth column is that multiplication sign, so that's for multiply or product. So again, if you see these words, it indicates the operation at the top of the column. And you have to know that when you're reading these expressions and translating into the symbols. So let's actually try some. So we want to translate the words into algebraic expressions using the red characters. So we have different numbers, and then we have the different operations that are relating to the variable k. So we're looking at 6 times k. So we have the number 6. Times is our clue word here for the operation. So times is going to indicate multiplication. So we'll use the multiplication dot, and we're multiplying by k. So we can have 6 multiplied by k, or you can have a different way of writing the multiplication. Maybe just also it could be 6 times k. We have 9 divided by k, so we have 9. Now divided by is our clue word for division, so we use the division symbol and the variable. So 9 divided by k. Here we have k less than 4. So less is indicating subtraction, but we do have less than. So that is going to switch the order. We first want to start with the second thing mentioned, which was 4. Then subtraction, so 4 minus k is k less than 4. We also have 2 more than k. So more than is our clue here for the operation of addition. So now here also we have more than. So actually we should start with k. Very similar to less than. So if we start with k, I'm actually going to have that first compared to the 2, but we're going to use addition. We're going to use a plus sign. So that would be k plus 2. And then finally, we have 3 less than k. So we would have the k first. This is another order switching situation because of the than, right? We have the than. So less is indicating subtraction, and then we have the number 3. So here is just, again, a summary of how you can translate the words into algebraic expressions using those characters. This is just a summary of what those expressions look like in symbols. So let's do another one. Let's do some more one at a time where we're doing it without guided numbers and symbols. So we have the sum of 21 and R. So the sum is a clue word for addition. So you should think we're going to use a plus sign for the number 21 and the variable R. So that would look like 21 plus R. Here's an example. We have the product of 5 and W. So the clue word here is product. Product indicates multiplication. So that would be the multiplication of the number 5 and the variable W. So we can, for example, write that as just 5W. You also could have used the multiplication dot, or you could have used parentheses, or just parentheses for the W. But the more general, proper way is 5W for the product of 5 and W. Here we have 28 less than X. So our clue word here for our operation is less than. Less than indicates subtraction. So we're going to have a subtraction sign. But we have to be careful because the than is going to tell us we have to reverse the order. So it shouldn't be 28 minus X. It should be X minus 28. So again, be careful of that tricky situation with the less than with subtraction. Here we have the example 5 times the difference of 9 and J. Now here we have a lot more going on in this expression than just one operation. We actually have two operations. We have 5 times, so times is kind of indicating multiplication, and we have the difference of 9 and J, which is indicating subtractions. So we have to remember that in our tool belt, we might need to use parentheses for a quantity. If two different operations are happening, we have to indicate which one comes first. So we can say 5 times, so 5 multiplied. Now, since it's by another operation, it's the difference of 9 and J, we're going to use parentheses for 9 and J. It's almost like we have 5 times and then parentheses, the difference of 9 and J. And it's just difference of, so you don't have to switch the order. The 9 comes before the J in that expression. Let's do one more just to really get used to the idea of parentheses. So here we have the product of 6 and Y divided by 13. So again, we have one clue word for an operation of product, which is multiplication, but then we also have divided by, which is going to indicate division. So we have two operations. We need to indicate which one comes first. So that is going to look like the product of 6y, we're just writing as 6y. And then divided by 13, we're using the fraction symbol. So that's like putting the parentheses around the product of 6 and y. Almost kind of the little comma is also indicating the difference between the two operations of multiplication and division. Now you also could have done 6y divided by 13. Right? That would work for your order of operations, putting parentheses. You could have used a slash. You could have also, the multiplication, you could have used also the multiplication dot. But either way, you're indicating that the multiplication comes before the division when you're evaluating that expression with order of operations. So just be careful when you're translating which one comes first, and you might have to use that parenthesis as a tool to help you.